Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and I wanted to help you decide if you wanted to pick up an iPhone XS Max or stay with the one you might already have, or pick up an iPhone 13 Pro Max. So I wanted to show you all the different things between each one of these devices with a camera comparison and more. But the first thing is the price. The iPhone XS Max is no longer sold new by Apple. However, they sell it in their refurbished store for $639 up to $939, and it comes in three different options: 64 gigabytes, 256 gigabytes, or 512 gigabytes. Now, you may be able to get it cheaper elsewhere or used, but that's what its current price is from Apple refurbished. Now, when it comes to the iPhone 13 Pro Max, it's the most expensive Apple iPhone at this point and comes in at $1,099 and goes up to $1,599. You have four different options for storage: 128 gigabytes, 256, 512, or 1 terabyte. You also have some different color options between both of them. With the iPhone XS Max, you can see I have silver here. You also have gold and space gray. With the 13 Pro Max, you have Sierra Blue that I have here, as well as silver, gold, and graphite. When it comes to the construction, you can see they're both very similar in the sense that they're stainless steel, but the XS Max is rounded on the outside corners, similar to what we've had for years before. So rounded around the outside edge, it's a little bit thinner than the 13 Pro Max as well, and also has glass front and back. Now, with the 13 Pro Max, again, similar construction in that it's stainless steel around the outside edge. However, it's squared off, more similar to that of the iPhone 4 series or 5 series phones. And again, we have glass front and back, but we have ceramic shield, which should be much more durable should you drop it, and it does seem to be more resistant to scratches overall. Now, as far as the weight, the XS Max is definitely lighter at 7.34 ounces or 208 grams, where the 13 Pro Max is 8.46 ounces or 240 grams. You can definitely feel the difference, especially with that larger camera bump at the top. One of the biggest differences between these devices is their battery. The iPhone XS Max has a 3,174 milliamp hour battery that Apple says is good for video playback up to 15 hours. The 13 Pro Max has a huge battery at 4,352 milliamp hours with video playback up to 22 hours. Both of them last quite a while throughout the day, and if we take a look at their battery health, they're both at about 99% for the XS Max, 100% for the 13 Pro Max. So I wanted to show you real world use. And so if we look at the last 10 days, we'll go a couple days back. You'll see the XS Max used about 50% of its battery while getting 2 hours and 8 minutes of screen on time, 14 minutes of screen off time. On the 13 Pro Max, with almost 50% use, I have 4 hours and 23 minutes of screen on time, 6 hours and 22 minutes of screen off time. Typically, a XS Max will get you through the day with regular use, but if you're a heavy user, you may need to charge. The 13 Pro Max will last most people almost 2 days, unless you're a heavy gamer or something along those lines. So definitely the 13 Pro Max has better battery life and some of the best battery of any phone currently available. Now, they both support fast charging, 50% in about 30 minutes or so, and both have wireless charging. However, the 13 Pro Max has MagSafe, which allows it to adhere to things magnetically. And that's where our charging partner, Anker, comes in, who's sponsored this video. This is the new 623 magnetic wireless charger that's compatible with MagSafe devices for the 13 and 12 series phones. It charges at 7.5 watts and, as you can see, can tilt. So if I place an iPhone on it, like the 13 Pro Max, I can tilt it to the side and watch things in landscape. It indicates that it's charging and also holds on to the phone, and you can lay it flat if you want. But if it's tilted up, what you've got is not only a charger, but you have a second charger that charges at 5 watts where you could charge accessories such as AirPods. So I'm charging AirPods 3 and the XS Max at the exact same time. You've got a 20-watt adapter that's included, and it comes in 4 different colors: Misty Blue, Interstellar Gray, Dolomite White, and Lilac Purple. It also comes with a corresponding USB-C to USB-C cable if you have a different color one. So you have matching cables to go along with it. I'll link it in the description below if you want to check it out. And thanks to Anker for sponsoring this video. Now, this is Qi compatible as well, so it will work with the 10s Max, but you don't get the benefit of the magnetic adherence. So you won't have that capability with the 10s Max, but you still can use this charger if you'd like. Now, the displays are definitely different as well. We have the 10s Max that still has 3D touch built in. So if you press and hold, it's pressure sensitive when you press down on it. It's also an OLED panel, but it's not quite as advanced as the 13 Pro Max. So what we have with the 10s Max is a 6.5-inch Super Retina HD display, 2688 by 1242 with 458 pixels per inch. However, with the 13 Pro Max, we have a 6.7-inch Super Retina XDR display, as Apple calls it, 2778 by 1284 with 458 pixels per inch. However, we have ProMotion, which ramps up the display to 120 Hz or brings it down to 10 Hz to save power. And it's definitely smoother when it comes to that. So if you'll see here at 240 frames per second, scrolling back and forth, you can see it under slow motion. That translates into real-world use where you'll see smoothness on the display as you scroll through things. So it's definitely smoother when it comes to the display, and it's noticeable and much nicer as far as just scrolling and looking through different things quickly. Now, the 10s Max doesn't go anywhere near as bright as the 13 Pro Max, meaning it goes up to 625 nits of brightness. So you go all the way up to the brightest setting, and it's 625 nits. The regular setting for just using it in day-to-day use is 1000 nits on the 13 Pro Max, up to 1200 nits of brightness when you're playing HDR content. Now, both technically can play HDR content on YouTube or other sources, but you'll definitely see much brighter brights on the 13 Pro Max as opposed to the 10s Max. On the 10s Max, you do have HDR options in YouTube. So if you go to the quality, go to advanced, you'll see HDR options there. So you have that option. Again, of course, with the newer phone, you're going to see that as well, up to 4K HDR. So it's super bright when you're watching that content, but it's a little bit better on the 13 Pro Max. As far as the viewing angles, they're going to be about the same. You will see the 13 Pro Max in sunlight a little bit better. And in general, the 13 Pro Max display just looks a little bit better. I handed this to my daughter to take a look at, and she asked if it had a different display on the 10s Max, as it was noticeable in regular viewing. So there is definitely a difference between both of them. Now, both displays do use PWM to control brightness. And what that means, if you're not familiar with it, it's pulse width modulation, and it's flashing the display faster or slower to control brightness. As you bring it up to a higher brightness level, it's actually flashing faster. You can't see this with your eyes, but it does cause some people to feel uncomfortable, cause eye strain, even cause you to feel nauseated or get a headache from it. This happens to about 1 in 10 people, according to what I could find about this. Now, on the 13 Pro Max, it's at a much higher rate, so it doesn't seem to bother my eyes at all. It's definitely noticeable under slow motion, as you can see here, but on the 13 Pro Max, it's very hard to pick up and is at such a high rate that it probably won't bother most people. So if that's something that bothers you, you've noticed with displays, I would go for the 13 Pro Max. Also, we have different notch sizes, so if we go into the control center here, it'll be more noticeable. The notch on the 13 Pro Max is narrower, but a little bit deeper into the display. Either one of them doesn't really bother me too much, but it's just something worth noting that it is a little bit narrower on the newer phone. Now, the speakers on both phones are quite good, but the newer phone has much louder speakers and a better stereo sound overall. I wanted to play a video for you, a little comparison, so you could hear some of the music from that and just hear what it sounds like between both of them, picked up by my microphone. While both of these speakers do sound pretty good, they're nice and loud, but the 13 Pro Max is a little bit louder, as you saw by using my watch with its decibel meter. So just take that into consideration. They both sound fine. I think they'll be sufficient for most people, but if you really want the loudest experience, go with the latest phone. Now, when it comes to the processors inside, they're quite a bit different. The XS Max has the A12 Bionic with 4 GB of RAM and the second generation neural engine. However, the 13 Pro Max has the new A15 Bionic with 6 GB of RAM, an upgraded GPU, and an upgraded neural engine. So I wanted to show you a speed test of exporting 4K video and thought we'd try and open up a game as well. So let's go ahead and open up Minecraft at the same time here and see how long it takes to load a world. So this just is sort of measuring how quickly it can boot up the game and then get into the game and play. And you'll see I haven't opened it too much on this. Let's go ahead and use its recommended settings. There we go. Give it just a moment to load. And you'll see it's a little bit choppy on the XS Max, but let's go ahead and hit play. So we'll hit play. Now we'll tap Create New, and then we'll hit Create New again. And then we'll hit Create. And let's see how long it takes to get into the game. So we'll hit Proceed on the 13 Pro Max. And you'll see it's going right away, and it's taking a little bit longer on the older phone. So it's definitely faster on the 13 Pro Max. As you can see here, it's still loading on the XS Max. So it's going to take a little bit longer to get in the game. Of course, it's going to be playable, but it's going to be a very big difference between the actual load times just due to the processor speed overall. So you saw the difference there, just loading it up for the first time on both devices. It's nice and smooth once you're in it, but it took a while to load. Now, when it comes to exporting 4K video, that's a more intensive process as well, and I wanted to share what that would be like. So we'll go into iMovie. So we're in iMovie, and what I've done is split the end of the clip and then put my logo or name over the top of the clip itself. And so we have the exact same one. Editing here is much smoother on the 13 Pro Max, just scrolling through the timeline in general, and you'll see it's the same exact clip. So let's go ahead and share this and see how long it takes to export it. So we'll go ahead and hit done. Now I'll bring in a stopwatch here. So let me slide these over so we get an idea of how long this takes. So we'll go ahead and hit share. Then we'll tap on save video on all of them and we'll hit start. And let's see how long this takes. And you can see the difference between both of them was not very big at all. In fact, the 13 Pro Max was only a few seconds, or not even a few seconds, faster than the XS Max with this test. So depending on what you're doing, you're going to have similar experiences. If it's taking time to load a game, well, it might be a little bit longer on the older phone, but exporting a 4K video is the same, basically. So it really depends on what you're doing, whether or not you should pick up the latest phone or stick with what you have or pick up something older. Now, when it comes to the cameras, they're definitely different here. With the cameras on the 13 Pro Max, we have some of the best cameras anyone has ever put into a phone, or really the best you can get right now. Now, with the forward-facing cameras, they're different as well. So I'm going to go over all the different specs and then we'll take a look at a comparison between both of them. The XS Max has a 7 megapixel forward-facing camera that can do 1080p video, where the 13 Pro Max has a 12 megapixel forward-facing camera with 4K video up to 60 frames per second in HDR. Both have an f2.2 aperture. On the back, the XS Max has just 2 cameras, so we have dual 12 megapixel cameras, and we have a wide and telephoto camera. So we have a wide f1.8 and a telephoto f2.4 with a 2x optical zoom. We can record 4K 60 video. But on the 13 Pro Max, we have a triple camera setup along with a LiDAR sensor. So what we have is an ultra-wide f1.8, a wide f1.5 with sensor shift stabilization, as well as a telephoto f2.8 with a 3x or 6x optical zoom range based off what Apple says. You also have macro modes, cinematic modes, ProRes, Apple ProRAW, and 4K 60 with Dolby Vision HDR, and a LiDAR autofocus sensor for autofocus and augmented reality. So very big differences when it comes to the camera. And so I thought I'd show you a comparison between both of them in both regular situations, video, and at night as well. This is the forward-facing video from the iPhone XS Max and the iPhone 13 Pro Max. The iPhone 13 Pro Max records 4K HDR up to 60 frames per second, while the XS Max is only 1080p up to 60 frames per second, but no HDR. Also, you can hear the difference between the microphone of the XS Max and the microphone of the 13 Pro Max. Let me know which one looks best to you and sounds best to you in the comments below. When it comes to the wireless connectivity of both, the XS Max has an Intel modem in it, and so the connectivity or cellular phone calls are just not going to be as good as you get on the 13 Pro Max, but it still should work just fine. However, the 13 Pro Max has 5G, where the XS Max has 4G LTE. Both of them have Wi-Fi capability, but the 13 Pro Max has 802.11ax for Wi-Fi 6. So you've got Wi-Fi 6 versus Wi-Fi 5, and they both have Bluetooth 5.0. You also have different IP ratings on the phones. So the XS Max has an IP68 rating of 2 meters for 30 minutes, where the 13 Pro Max has an IP68 rating for 6 meters for 30 minutes. So you definitely have a little bit better water resistance in the newer phone as well. However, both of them should hold up pretty well if you get them a little bit wet. If you're going to submerge them, I would recommend you put a case on them, as Apple does not cover damage by water. So definitely put a case on them if you're planning to bring them into water that's a waterproof case. When it comes to the supported iOS versions, you can expect the XS Max to get at least a few more years of updates. iOS 16, 17, 18, maybe even beyond that, where the 13 Pro Max will get at least iOS 20 based on what we've had before. 20, maybe 22, we don't really know how long Apple plans to support them, but you can count on a long time for either of these devices. So if you want the latest updates when iOS 16 or iOS 17 comes out, the XS Max should be supported unless Apple changes something drastically by then. So both of them should be covered for at least a few more years, but of course the later phone or the newest phone is going to get you the longest longevity with iOS updates. And so they're both good phones in many different respects, but obviously certain things are going to matter more to different people. So if cameras matter most to you and the display with ProMotion, go for the 13 Pro Max. If you want a phone that's going to work well, get you through the day, and get the latest updates, but doesn't have to be the latest and greatest, then maybe you want to pick up the XS Max. Of course, you have Face ID on both, and they both seem to be great phones overall. I've used both for a very long time at this point. The XS Max I used for a full year, where the 13 Pro Max I'm still using, but they're both great phones, and I can highly recommend both if the price is correct for you. If you have one handed down to you, then a XS Max would be great. If you get a great deal on a 13 Pro Max, well, then go with that. Either of them are great, but of course, the latest and greatest is going to have the more advanced features. Let me know which one is best for you, and if you have either of these phones, or if you're picking up either one of them, or if you've opted for something different. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.